Hey guys, Products of Your Environment, episode 7. Today, we're going to be talking on a few different topics. Talking to someone that has been in and around my family for a very long time. Cut my hair personally for over 14 years as a barber. I've known him as a football manager within my local club, Ammonia Youth. He also has a background within the comedy industry and also as a psychologist, but I didn't really know how to introduce him. So big welcome to Chris. Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Am I here?
Yeah, you're here, you're here. How are you?
Hello, Rico.
How are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good.
Well, actually, I'm not. I can't begin the first question and answer it as an autopilot. Like most people say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not that good. I'm all right, considering. But
Mm.
yeah, a bit roller coaster, isn't it? So, as many people are. So, evening
Mm-hmm.
was have we frozen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine now, it's fine now, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
Chris,
So,
what are you then?
what am I? Okay, so yeah, I'm a therapeutic wellbeing practitioner. That's the title, which is mainly geared towards children, but the work is done with adults, also groups, communities, organisations, and it really is almost like a general kind of approach to wellbeing that's informed by mental health, youth work, social work, education, mindfulness. What it does is it allows us to implement a therapeutic approach that hasn't got the limits, the restrictions and boundaries maybe of a psychotherapist who have to do it in a practice in four walls. A lot of therapeutic wellbeing practitioners are use different approaches. I've used football. There's drama. We've got people who are chefs, gardeners. The training allows you to use whatever you're already good at or something that you do, and then become a therapist doing that. So yeah.
So it's almost interlinking them to something you're passionate about, basically.
Yeah. So like I said, other people want to know, okay, I'm good at this, so they teach you how to use that as your approach. Obviously it's very much informed by different theories, psychotherapeutic theories. That's its main thing. It's a therapy. It's a therapy. And the foundation course that I did was very arts based. So using different creative mediums, puppetry, clay modeling, sand play, drama, music. Yeah. So that's where the foundation year was all that. So it's hugely, again, play therapy based.
What made you want to get into that?
Oh, well, there's the short cliche boring answer to that, which so many people use as, yeah, I wanted to give back. But I guess my own path led me there. So growing up and having well, I do call them extreme. Yeah, I can't play them down, but having my own difficulties with mental health issues, and then eventually later on in adult life seeking therapy, beginning a therapeutic process as a client, and then I would never say that, oh yeah, I was healed. I don't think everybody, it's a continuous journey, but having some kind of clarity and a kind of enlightenment, and me thinking, wow, this is great. I want to stay in this. There must have been a purpose to all of my experiences. So, and I loved the creative side. I mean, I love to play. I think everybody does at heart, but the whole creative side drew me in. I've done some other training, some general counseling training. I'm a qualified meditation teacher, life coach, but it was the to be able to use different forms of play therapy is what drew me into this particular course. So yeah.
So obviously at the moment, especially now, a very big topic is that we see everywhere. Wherever we look, we see mental health, keeping fit mentally. What does it actually mean? What does mental illness and mental health actually mean? Like, what is it?
Okay. So many years ago when I started my training, we were speaking about how there's going to be an explosion and everyone's going to be talking about mental health eventually. You know, it's the place to be, and corporate's going to be investing in people's mental well-being, children, schools. So I think that's basically where we're at. I think the reason why we're hearing about it more and more is because there's just an increased awareness of something that was always there. You know, I think it's definitely something that there's been a need for it, more so for children and also for men, because the things that we're striving for with this, you know, everyone talking about mental health, is to get people talking more, and that's something that, again, we all know this, that women tend to do better than men naturally. So that's addressing what mental health is. I think it's just I'm hoping that at some point we won't be talking about mental health and physical health. It will just be health, and people will know that we're talking about both. Yeah. We're talking about the whole holistic approach. Mental illness, this is the thing that I find quite intriguing, because, you know, I remember, and I'll give you a real life example here, you know, and I remember being a 10-year-old kid going through what I won't go into too much detail, but feeling like I was breaking down, you know, real, you know, scary stuff that I was experiencing, and hearing my dad tell me he was depressed. And as a 10-year-old kid, thinking, not speaking this, but thinking, what do you know about it? He was depressed because it was a wintry day, as far as I was concerned, and it was grey. So obviously there's very, very different levels. And interestingly enough, in all the years that I've been involved as a client, as a therapist, in training, I've met very, very few people who understand the mental illness that I experienced. There's loads of people who have experienced different things, and it's very, you know, it's as serious as it is to them. You know, I'll never rubbish anybody if it's a struggle for them. It's a struggle for them. But so many people are talking about it. I don't know whether I don't know how much people really understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah. Just one more bit to explain. Like you said, your dad came up to you and said that he feels depressed. For people that see the word and think, oh, I think a lot of people think as depression as just being upset or in a bad mood, but it's more than that. Can you just talk? What is depression? What does it actually mean to be depressed?
Well, listen, there's a lot more written about it. That's great. I'm not rubbishing anything. Symptoms, people talk about, you know, not being able to get out of bed, you know, physically. I said, this is the link as well, where, you know, aching, no drive, clouded thoughts, fears, loads of fears, can't face, you know, can't communicate, dreaded thoughts and feelings, projecting what might happen constantly. You know, there's loads of that projecting. And the biggest thing that I think doesn't get spoken about is dissociation. where you, again, and I hope by seeing this, people will relate. And these are the things that are not often spoken about. And that's that really feeling like you're in someone else's body, or even that someone else has jumped into yours, where suddenly you don't recognize the things that are familiar to you every day. Suddenly, listen, we're always going on about suicide, especially in men between a certain age. But what is it that drives these guys to do that? I know that there'll be a lot of people. I can't even claim to really know, because I didn't do it, but I've got a pretty good idea, and the circle of people that I know have got a pretty good idea. It's not just going to be, oh, I'm feeling down, or it's that when it gets that feeling, when it gets so bad that you don't want to be here anymore. It's so scary. You don't want to be here anymore. The thoughts that are in your head, you feel, are that bad, that scary, that you believe them so much that you couldn't possibly share them with anybody. Because no matter, obviously there's much less of a stigma around mental health these days, but there are still people that will be going through it, that will have certain thought processes that will think that if they share those, they'll be locked away. I've experienced that. I know people close to me that have experienced that too. But luckily we did share.
I think, and that's the hardest part when it comes to it, opening it up to other people. So how can people get help? Like, surely it's not just opening up about it. Like, what can people do to help themselves if they know they're in a dark place?
Okay. Well, listen. There's an abundance of stuff. There's an abundance of practices to help people, in the short term and the long term. I mean, some of the guys that you've spoken to, some great stuff. Physical, the work, being with nature every day, creativity, to help self, write, draw, play whenever possible. When someone's in a dark space, all of those things seem impossible. But if I take it from the worst possible scenario, where you don't feel like you can do any of those things, you feel incapable, it is about finding the right person, finding the right therapist. I was really, really, really lucky to find the person that I found when I needed them. So a little bit of a backstory on that. I was standing in my barber shop, not the last one, the one before that, on a Friday evening with about 10 people in it, and my mind was racing so much, like the fear and the level, the amount of crazy thoughts that were going through my mind, and the noise in my head. I literally just stopped and walked out of my own barbershop and went home, and left my staff there thinking, where's he gone? Like, I just couldn't. And that was the night when I ended up going to my therapist. And it wasn't because they were particularly, I couldn't tell how skilled they were. Obviously, I found out after how great they were that first day, but there was a warmth. They say about you got to connect before you correct. So a good therapist is someone that you will connect with straight away. You'll feel a warmth in their presence. There's that non-judgment. He could see exactly where I was at that time, and there are people out there like that. Unfortunately, with this rise in the buzzwords, mental health, so many people have trained up. It's good, mental health first aid training. There's so many people training up, but the majority of people that I studied with, they were led to becoming therapists because of their own story. They lived it, whereas a lot of people are training up now because it's a money spinner. I'm not saying they're not going to be any good, but just in terms of finding the right person, if there are still people that are having doubts about whether or not they can go to therapy, whether there is a stigma, it is the gym of the mind. It's as normal.
Before that therapist that you saw, did you see anyone else?
I did actually, yeah. When I was 19 years old, I was sent to see a lady.
What do you think? What do you think the difference between the one you clicked with was?
Well, obviously, I won't go into her therapeutic approach because it was slightly different. She was maybe informed differently, but she didn't know how to make me feel at ease. I mean, I was sitting there and I was nervous. I was a 19-year-old who was sent to therapy, and I was doing this. I was twiddling my ring, and straight away, before she knew anything about me, she was like, "I can see you're twiddling your ring there," which there is an approach that does that works in the here and now. You know, it's called. I'm assuming it was what's called a gestalt approach, but that wasn't the right thing to do. That wasn't the right thing to do then, because I went like this, like, where am I supposed to put my hand? You know what I mean? It wasn't the right time for me. You know, that wasn't the right time for me to be in any kind of therapy. But you know, the guy who I met, again, this is a fascinating story. Is for some reason at the age of 28, I decided to tell this one lady who I used to cut her husband and her son's hair in my shop. I just dared to tell her that I was going through what I was going through, this bout of depression. And she looked at me straight in my eyes and she said to me, "You're depressed." You know, it's the first time anyone ever said that to me. It was, you know, it's probably why I confided in her, because I knew that she might see it differently. And she came into my shop and she grabbed, do you even know what a Yellow Pages is, Rico?
Is that the book? What is it?
Yes.
From the
Yeah,
old. I think I've heard it from my dad a couple of times.
yell.com, but it was a book. It was a thick book with all business addresses named in it, like a directory.
Yeah.
And it was a thick thing. And she slammed it on my desk at work. And she said to me, "I'm not leaving here until you ring a therapist." I rang. The first one didn't answer. And the second one ended up being my guy, who I ended up seeing every week for 5 years. Carried on seeing him after as a friend, became like a mentor to me, you know, and he was incredible. So, you know, I was lucky there. He's very much the inspiration behind a lot of the work that I do. And unfortunately, he passed away just before I began my studies, a few months before. So he would have been the one who I would have run to and said, "I learned this today, and what do you think? And that's what you meant by that." But he's very much in my thoughts and in my practice. So
Just on the situation right now for everyone throughout lockdown, I don't know if it's as easy as to be. I don't know if this is so easily like it can be asked this easily, but how can people like stay mentally healthy during lockdown? Is there anything to do that, you know, can make you feel better?
I can only speak about the things that I do, because obviously it's going to be different for everybody. There will be things that 100% will make someone feel better. Like if you do some physical exercise, you're going to feel better for a bit. You know, if you find some time to meditate, and that doesn't need to be 20 minutes, could be 5 minutes here and there. You don't even need to sit. There's many ways to meditate. You know, I was writing every morning, doing what's called, I mean, you can look it up. Some people will probably know what the morning pages are. That is literally opening your eyes and writing down 3 A4 pages of whatever comes to your mind. Doesn't even need to make sense. It's called brain draining, and it puts that on paper. Yeah, so I did a lot of writing. Obviously, last lockdown was a lot easier, trying to find lots of things to do. Like when I said about meditation, I painted my fence and I made sure that I did that in silence. And I made sure that I focused. That's a form of meditation in itself, right? One thing that really helps me is something that I still use now with, I don't have as many bouts of the depression that used to grip me. And one of the reasons why is because when I get those kind of feelings, they don't grip me anymore. It's like I'll meet them at the front door and I guide them out the back.
Yeah.
And look at them as being temporary. It will pass. And there's something about collective suffering, human suffering. We're all in this together, right? Globally, it's going to pass. It's a historical time. So for people to actually say, well, listen, we're all, every human being is going through it. And I think that's come with some benefits too, because there are more people to talk to. There are more people to understand that will understand you. At the same time, there are more people that see you walking down the street and jump out of the way like you're the bogeyman and they're all right. Right. But again, to drum home the old cliche is just talk, even if you think a lot of people will think they're alone. But by talking, you discover that there are more people going through the same thing as you that you couldn't believe, really. So
In the first lockdown, you wrote your own biography, right?
I did.
Tell me about. Sorry.
It was part of my healing. I think part of making sense of what was going on. Every day, the family would wake up and find me sat on the same spot on the table with my laptop open.
You think that was a form of your meditation as well?
Right. So.
You think that was a form of your meditation as
100%. Well? It gave me something to look forward to. I was completely lost in it. I loved it. So.
What made you want to do it? Like, what do you want to achieve from it?
Well, it's quite a cathartic experience, and just generally to write your story. And through my studies, we were asked to do it so many times. Anybody who's had any kind of therapeutic training would have been asked to write an account of their own life, or like we did, perform it in any kind of art, chosen art medium. So I've done that a few times at college through my essays, and then they added a surprise, and they added another module to my studies, and it required you to write what was called an ethnography. People can look that up. It is a piece where you're the subject and the author, and it's all about thinking about your culture, your upbringing, your product of your environment, right? All of it asks you to do. So I'm thinking, I've got to write this thing again. The easiest thing for me to do is go back to my old essays and copy and paste. But I thought, nah, I'm done, because I used to, I wrote in quite a tragic way when I wrote it was quite painful, love a bit of tragedy. So I wrote in this tragic way about my past, and then I just thought I'm kind of done with that now. It coincided with me doing my Hanging Up the Scissors comedy gig where your brother performed, which was very much me talking about stuff like that. I jumped into the book straight after that. So I thought, no, I'm going to write it, but I'm going to write it with a comedy spin. So it's going to be as serious and hard hitting as anything that I've ever written. And honest, sorry, I can't say it's going to be hard hitting for everybody. Honest, talking about family life, talking about my own mental health issues, making myself vulnerable, but at the same time, anywhere that I could find an opportunity to mock myself or something about my life, I did that. And it was basically read by a friend of mine. Not many people have read it, who passed it on to a friend of his who was basically wrote one of the one of the more popular British sitcoms. I'm not going to say what, so people don't know who yet, and they really liked it. Somebody wanted to invest in it. So yeah, it was a really, really important experience for me, and it's sat there waiting for me to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and edit it a bit. And
So
the only problem with it is
go on, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
No, you go.
Oh, honestly, you go.
Yeah, the thing is, if it does eventually get released, obviously I can't say the title of it, and I'll probably have to have some kind of pseudonym, like what do they call them, just a fictitious name. I'm guessing people might guess that it's from me with the content, but in order to protect the people that feature in it. But again, a really, really interesting experience for a lot of people to do, because what happens when you're writing about yourself, you almost remove yourself from the situation. It's like sometimes it's like you're hovering above your life, looking down on little you, looking down on a young dad and a young mum, and it gives you a different picture, especially when you mock it, and that I love my comedy. It's helped me to survive all these years. So very important.
Tell me your background with comedy.
I don't always remember trying to be funny. I guess when I was younger, I did some stuff. I do believe, people talk about humor being a defense mechanism, and I do feel like maybe that was developed for that reason for me. Never saw myself as being an intellectual or smart or academically. I didn't really achieve, but when it came to kind of like offering a humorous contribution, I'd be able to live with a lot of people. And then I think just before I opened Wise Guys, I saw a course in comedy writing, and a lot of people used to tell me that I was funny, or question how I process things. Why do you process things like that? And I never knew. So I wanted to do this comedy writing course, literally just as I opened Wise Guys, which ended up being a 12-week course in stand-up comedy. So you're writing, but at the end there's a performance. And I thought, yeah, okay. I was curious, how can anyone teach someone how to be funny? But I also thought to myself, well, I might as well go into an environment like that and see whether I am. And yeah, I think within my second gig was at the Comedy Store in London. So one of my jokes got published in a teach yourself stand-up comedy book as well, straight away. But interestingly enough, Rico, is I got into stand-up comedy exactly the same time as I had the most powerful, revealing part of my life through meditation. So on one hand, I'm doing this practice, this all peace loving and seeing things in a different way. And then I'm leaving that and going up and standing on a stage and ripping the piss out of people who, and possibly being judged. So I'm thinking no one really knows me, but I'm doing that. So yeah.
And you also have experience within the footballing community as well, right?
Yeah, football's, if I'd given anything else the amount of hours and minutes that I'd given to football, I may have been a professor in that subject. But yeah, so yeah, having played, and again, I've written about it in my book as well, about how it saved me many times, how it was my only, it validated my sanity sometimes. When I was a kid, when I was going through stuff, I'd literally be on a football pitch sometimes playing football, and I'd score a goal in the midst of a childhood depression, and I'd be telling myself, see, you're not that bad, you just scored. And So and then carrying on playing, and then stopping just after Charlie, my son, was born. Literally 2 weeks after he was born, and then eventually getting into coaching because I've got very, very strong views on youth football development. And I remember thinking, well, he's going to play football. I never forced him to. He never saw me play, but he took a liking to it. And I thought, rather than expose him to a potentially horrific coaching experience, let me do it. And with my brother Jimmy, and that was 10 years ago now. So we've had them since they were 5, and they're under 16 now.
Do you think there's stuff you learned from talking to a lot of people in the barber chair or coaching kids that you've taken into therapy as well?
Which, do you want me to answer them separately? Have I learned from
either? Yeah.
Did you ask if I've learned from them things from?
Yeah, like to take into the other profession.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you tell people, well, to start with the barbering thing, when you tell people that you used to be a barber, they're the first thing a lot of them say is, well, that's a kind of therapy anyway. And I always joke with them, yeah, I've worked on the outside of the head, now I'm working on the inside. But it wasn't so much that. I mean, the amount of people, if you're, like I said, if you connect with people, then barbering is a fantastic way to especially if you're therapeutically trained. Even if you're not, you're going to connect with people. They're going to tell you things. Human contact is a great icebreaker, right? There's not many other jobs where you can be, especially with blokes. I was talking about the ego is to be touching another bloke's face while you're straight away. It's almost like there's some barriers have come down. So yeah, of course, man. There's so many people that I've met over the years that who touched me, told me some things that I'll never forget. You can learn something from anybody, right? Someone doesn't need to be a therapist or a wise old spiritual warrior sat at the top of a mountain. You can learn something from someone working in a supermarket who says something to you that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. I had that in my shop. I believe, by the way, that a lot of the barbering training now is going to include a mental health module, which will be the same for a lot of courses now that have got nothing to do with mental health. You're trained as a barber, you'll get mental health training. You're trained as a football coach, you'll get mental health training. So, and the coaching with the kids, yeah, of course. I mean, that makes me feel very sentimental, especially now that we've got no football. We're looking back over the coaching over the years with the little ones and their parents, getting close with people. It did teach me a lot about I guess about the needs, and also how I said, football was, about the football doctor. Football therapy was an angle that I was quite passionate about and still am, and how unique football is.
As you said before, like it differs from person to person, but for anyone going through a hard time, what can you give any kind of advice?
Yeah, ring me.
Chris.
Listen, I actually said that in jest because obviously I can't possibly help everybody. But what I would say is there are many people who will know someone that can help. And I would certainly do that. I know my limits if I didn't think I can. One of the things that I definitely do, and I know a lot of people around me will do, is they won't just leave something if someone has a crisis. If someone's going through something specific, to refer them on, 100%. That's the sort of thing that I would do. Is speak to someone who's going to be able to carry and manage your pain. Someone who's not going to be scared of it. And that might not necessarily be the people that are closest to you. That often isn't. You can't find it in your own four walls. But reach out. Just give it a go. And I mean that. And I said, I would forget the money thing as a business. You know, if you can make yourself approachable, you know, someone might come to you after this, and then you can come to me, and you know, so people, you know, it's like I said, being approachable, contactable, and trusting someone to be able to put you in the right to the right people or person. Yeah, that was a long one, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was actually longer before, but fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say nobody's indestructible, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Everybody, you know, every therapist has a therapist. You know, I know many therapists who are going through extreme difficulties themselves now, and they just lean on someone else. They process it. So there's always someone there. And I've got to quote my old therapist, and it's probably not his quote, but there's nothing. He always used to say to me, "There's nothing new under the sun. Everything's been done before. Everything's been heard before. Everything's been experienced before." Which means that there will always be someone to, you know, an old hand. There'll always be someone there to offer it. I sincerely believe that.
I agree. Thank you for coming on, Chris.
Thank you for having me, man.
Hopefully I'll see you soon once this lockdown's over.
Yes, I look forward to hugging you.
Always, always. Well, see you later.
Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you.
Middle child. Upper L.
That's the one.
See you later, son.
See you later.